Excellent.
Well, should we go ahead and get started or give folks a few more minutes or yeah.
I think we're good.
All right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Esther West and I'm here with Rebecca Kimball, and we're both part of a Solidarity Economy Principles group. Let's see here, and we're excited to share this our Solidarity Economy principles and have a more interactive workshop today as well. So just to get started, today we're going to go through introductions. And again, if you'd like to just say who you are in chat and say a little hi, maybe where you're coming from, that would be great. And we're going to do an overview of our project, then do breakouts and harvest what we did in the breakouts together as a group, and have a discussion and invitation to build together our solidarity economy. And we'll also have a Q&A. So yeah, again, I'm Esther. I'm with the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops Board, and I'm a worker owner at the Ajani Group and also on the board of MadWork. And Rebecca, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Rebecca Kimball. I'm a worker owner at Union Cab in Ho-Chunk Territory, also known as Madison, Wisconsin, on the board of MadWork, former president of the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops. And I'm just coming off 6 years on the Madison City Council, where I try to bring solidarity economy and co-ops to the city as a whole. So we are here. I'm going to ask for your indulgence as I am doing tech and trying to facilitate at the same time. And it's my first time trying to do tech in a Zoom and also sharing my screen and trying to forward the slides, which, okay, I'm figuring out how to do. Okay, and I can't see the notes. So Esther and I have divided this up between she and I think I remember which slides I'm going to do, and I think this one is mine. So, except I can't read it because of the participants in the chat. So, man, I have so much to learn. I'm so old, and it's hard to learn some of these things. But anyway, as this slide says, we are here to invite you to take part in developing a shared set of solidarity economy principles and practices to build the solidarity movement in the United States. And so this is not going to be so much us presenting to you as all of us working with a draft document that a bunch of us have made over the past year and getting your feedback on it and asking you to practice with some of it. The website is at solidarityeconomyprinciples.org. You could pull it up if you want. Or not. We'll be giving you guidance and direction throughout this presentation of how to engage. But in that website, you will see there will be explanations of what the document is, and in the About tab, it gives you the history of how this came about. And then under the principles, we've come up with a set of principles. And under each principle, there's a bunch of practices. So we really hope this is a tool for people trying to build, in our context, worker cooperatives, but generally building worker cooperatives within a larger solidarity, both regional, national, and international solidarity economy that can help guide us in our work with all of the challenges in our work. So this was our loving response to this urgent need for greater cooperation, education, and self-governance in this space.
Yeah, and our goals for today are to introduce the solidarity economy principles, process, and project, and to understand the needs that inspired this and to get clarity about what this is and isn't. Another goal is to explore how this can advance our worker co-op goals. So we'll have small group practice and dig into how you see this tool being useful. We'll also discuss worker owners' involvement and brainstorm ways that the network and members can give feedback and help shape this living document in centralized and decentralized ways. So our goal is not really to process every word of the principles in that link, but rather to know how you feel about them and engage with them and see how they look in practice.
So this next slide is, whoops, again, forgive me, is a quote from Alandria Williams, who at the time of her death last year was the executive director of People's Hub, and a popular educator, but she was really a global force for justice and solidarity, or they were, sorry. And Alandria was active in the movement for Black Lives and the Unitarian Universalist Association and so many disability rights groups and in international solidarity economy organizations, and really just dedicated their lives so deeply to building the infrastructure and the capacity of human beings who had this drive and this spark to build a just economy, to support them in whatever way they could. And this quote, it's time to have a real good integrative plan around where do we want to be and go, and how do we love ourselves in the midst, was really emblematic of the inspiration for this whole project. And now we're not saying that this is an, Landra Williams stamp of approval thing. Like any of you who knew knew that they would argue with, anything, anyone, anything, and everyone in the most loving way. And we really, really miss E's voice in this process. But this project really started a year ago. Whoops, hit too many buttons. When myself, Cheyenne Weber, Eli Fagali, and Rachel Plattis came together to just grieve the loss of our dear friend, that we had been variously, each of us had been working with different things with them. Eli and Rachel had been working on the Beautiful Solutions book with them. Cheyenne had been working with People's Hubs in developing a solidarity economy work within the People's Hub. And I had been working with E around really how to get the worker cooperative movement engaged in building trade networks, not only with each other, but within the larger solidarity economy as a whole, and actually developing a solidarity economy and pinning that on trade networks. And so it was just a huge loss to all of us when E passed. And we talked for a couple months, just processing our personal grief, and then realized we need to just pick up this work and go forward with it. And the thing that was a common thread amongst all of that work was this need for principles of the solidarity economy. And so over the winter, we put our heads together and came up with some ideas, and then invited a couple dozen people to join us in putting together a document of principles. Those were, it was people from our networks, which I'll have a slide next where you can see who all has been involved with it. And the idea was we would just get something out there and then invite folks who consider themselves active in the solidarity economy to take this document, very much a living document, add to it, add practices, help us more fully define it, shape it, and then by spring of next year, have it be introduced to the world as, a thing that many, hopefully hundreds, maybe thousands of people will have collaborated on. So what you're seeing right now is just a very first draft of a document / website with the intention of building unity and shared culture around the solidarity economy. deepening our collective understanding of the diversity of forms and viewpoints that make up the solidarity economy, and to continue to build from what E has taught us and what we've worked on together. So this is, again, living document that we hope, this is one of the first presentations we've done publicly of it. And we hope that you all at Worker Co-op Week, we see you as some of the main people who are struggling with these questions, who have practices, who have developed practices to deal with some of these issues raised, and who can be really helpful in this process. So here is a list of people who were engaged with this over the last spring and summer. As you'll see, many of them are from worker cooperatives, but some aren't. Some are from other parts of the solidarity economy, including academic institutions, land trusts, people working on building regional solidarity economy organizations, etc. And so again, this is by no means anything other than some people in our personal networks who we know have been grappling with questions around principles. And we really hope that a wider engagement with this document will make it much better.
So yeah, what do I mean by solidarity economy? And for this slide, we were wondering if we could get some of y'all to read with us. So we're going to have 6 people read 1 sentence each. And if you could just raise your little Zoom hand or put in chat if you would like to read a sentence, I'll keep tracking and we can read this together as a group. Gary, I got you. Gary. Yuko, is that how you say your name? I'm sorry. Yuko.
That is correct.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks. All right, Julian, thank you. And let's see here. I still need 3 people. Okay, Adrian. All right. Anyone else? Hey, Chris. Oh, Melissa. And who else?
I see Johnny Mac's hand up.
Oh, excellent. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we are good. We are good. Okay, so the order will be Gary, Yuko, Julian, Adrienne, Melissa, and John. Okay, so Gary, take it away. The first sentence.
SE rests on our shared values, justice, and environmental sustainability and mutualism.
We seek to create systems that honor the independence of all beings and elevate of those being over the priorities of system based on individualism and private property.
It is distinct, which according to Michelle Williams includes nonprofits, is that, quote, seek to achieve limited progressive change within the confines of the current by ameliorating the effects of market failure, unemployment.
Solidarity economy is a transformative vision of society based on democratic self-management, redistribution, solidarity, and reciprocity.
A solidarity economy only develops when we work together as a movement in networks and federations and coalitions that themselves embody solidarity economy values. This is where we become truly powerful.
Okay, John, since you didn't get to read, why don't you read this, John?
Ultimately, SE values and goals cannot be achieved without the inclusion of a broader set of actors and a firmer commitment to joint strategy, collective action, and solidarity.
Yeah, so based on that, that definition and this idea, for those of you who have been in the worker co-op movement, you can see some of the tensions. You can probably come up with some, scenarios where there have been tensions either within your own co-op or within co-op associations or between co-op sectors or between, co-ops and other parts of the solidarity economy movement that Alandria and I and many other people have worked really hard to understand where those tensions are coming from and root our forward solutions thinking in principles that we can all agree on, because I think we're all, most of us in the worker co-op movement come with this vision for social transformation. I know I did. I know I'm only in it because of the potential for massive transformation of our reality based on humans who are cooperative, based on people, the transformation of ourselves and finding a different way. And I think in my work, in my international work, it's been so stunning to me, not surprising, but stunning every time I get into international sessions and work with folks internationally, that we come from a mainstream culture in this country, which is probably, the least conducive to cooperation, the least conducive to solidarity, and the competitive individualist capitalist mindset is so drilled in to us in the mainstream culture. Not saying that in other people's other family cultures can be different, but the broad weight of society is against us. And so I think this tool will really be helpful to us from this country, and particularly in building a solidarity economy. So Esther, is this mine?
Oh, either, yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so the principles, just in the document, we categorize them under 5 different categories: accountability and relationship, shared resources and shared vision, liberation culture, democracy and process, and education and leadership development. And those, again, are rooted in these values of cooperation, democracy, social and racial justice, environmental sustainability, and mutualism. And again, we think these are things that are, broadly shared. And we hope that your engagement with this will help us deepen and broaden our understanding of these.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to that. And we'll move on to our breakout activity now. So we're going to, here's what we're going to do. Basically, just a quick overview is that in breakout rooms, you're going to review more in depth one of the principles and based on your breakout room number, and then you're going to talk with each other about a scenario and we have a draft scenario, or you can make up, or you to there and talk about that, but we have draft scenarios written out and you'll discuss them and how you'd approach it with that principle in mind. And then we'll come back as a big group and share. So we'll put this link in chat to another Google Doc that has the in-depth principles and scenarios. And we'll break you out into breakout rooms. Assign a note taker, first of all, and then someone to share back with a larger group. And you'll read the principles as a group, and then you'll look at the principle that's the same number as your group, and you'll look at the scenario to work with. But again, if someone has a real life scenario, use that if you want, and use the principle to guide a discussion. So we'll have 20 minutes for this. And let me just get that link real quick here for you. Okay, so does everyone see that in chat, the Google Doc link? Awesome, thank you. So yeah, so we're going to break out into breakout five, let's say five. Rebecca, do you think 5 breakout rooms is good?
Yeah, oh, access denied. Let's see, can we open up access to that?
I have that actually. I'll do that. So hey, Rebecca, I think I have that on my back end. So I'm going to open all rooms now. Okay, can folks see that? Are folks able to join these?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
So I'm going to stay in the main room and pause the recording, just so that it's paused. It's a little easier for us to push it back together when we do that later.
Excellent, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Nice to see your faces. Oh my gosh. So delightful. I wish we could be in person, but next year, probably, hopefully. There's Chris. Hey, man. Nice to see you. Thanks. Awesome. Are we all back? Are we waiting on any groups? Maybe, let's see. I think we're waiting on another. No. Okay, I think we're all back. Awesome. So quick reaction, like if you did it go well or not, like overall you could do a little reaction or thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs medium. How'd it go? Yeah, thumbs. Okay, nice. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. Thank you, everybody. Excellent. So now we're going to do a harvest activity. We're going to harvest our thoughts and what you talked about. Nice. So let's see here. So Rebecca, I'm afraid it's just showing the white screen. I'm not sure why. Maybe, can you try again? Or I can try with screen share.
Going to be taking notes while you facilitate.
Oh, so I'll share my screen. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm just going to share the whole group harvest. So can y'all see that?
Yeah.
You can? Okay, great. Excellent. So yeah, so each group was to have a note taker. So we're interested if you can just share what your principle was and what your scenario that you ended up talking about was, and then your discussion and your process. We'll go through those group by group. So let's start. Let's just, I guess we could just go in order. Let's start with group number 1.
Hello. Anyone please feel free to speak up from the group as well. But our situation was accountability and relationships. And the situation was that someone was late often. And what do you do about that? Our conversation revolves around really focusing on the person who's being late and what they might be going through, and kind of having accountability to the relationship. And we kind of brought in grief really quickly due to our times. And we're saying, like, how do you, putting more attention into the relationship. What can we do? Why is this happening? Kind of digging in, communication. And the other thing I'll note from the conversation is it was talking about conflict as being generative, and towards the end it came up of well, maybe the conflict is why are you having a problem with this person being late, actually, and kind of discussing like the role of time and the role of urgentness and timeliness as far as white supremacist influence, and also, you know, also holding that this is a delicate balance because we do need to be agreeing on ways of doing things. How was that?
That was great. That was great. We also discussed like those were the heavier things. We discussed the easy fixes, like if it was a childcare or public transportation problem, we thought that those things could be addressed with administrative fixes like flex time. But as Adrienne said, with deeper things like grief or distress causing the tardiness, we would have to be accountable to the relationship.
Thank you. Excellent. Really appreciate that. And you know, like it just like stands out like how different this is than a traditional work or non-co-op workplace. Like, you know, like these are very real things, and this is part of our movement's response to daily life, and you know, especially with COVID, but even outside of that. So I really appreciate y'all's thoughts. Thank you. Excellent. And would group number 2 like to share?
It was group number 2. My internet cut out in the middle, so I will start, and then hopefully my new friends will fill in. We were talking about shared resources and shared vision, and a co-op startup that is having trouble kind of like integrating decisions and having finances shared, and talked about the general tension in the principle between autonomy and connection, and needing like that we both want to support worker autonomy and then also want connection across organizations and network building, and how that needs to be built into the whole context, and how even just like the capacity to do cross-pollination and sharing, especially for a startup and especially during the pandemic, has been so challenging when groups are just trying to get off the ground. And so some things we talked about was like working at the very individual co-op member level, or like worker owner level, to like build in practices of more sharing and connection, and then also what can be done field wide. And maybe someone else in my group will step in.
Hi, this is Mel, also in group 2. I completely, everything that Jessica said was on point. I guess the only thing I would just add was that something that I mentioned, and mostly from personal experience, is the idea of like the worker owners feeling less power and less authority in the decision-making process because of the fact that they didn't contribute the capital funds in the very beginning. And so sort of like shifting that power dynamic where, you know, they're reclaiming their personal power in this process was, you know, coming up with ways in which they can, or coming up with solutions and challenging how things are being done, regardless of their capital investment, if that makes sense. Yes.
Excellent. Anyone else from group 2 want to share anything more? Okay, thank you. Thank you, group 2. Group number 3.
Okay, I think our principal was it liberation culture? Is that, I can't look back at the screen, but our scenario was about a predominantly white worker co-op that had a storefront for several years in the predominantly Black neighborhood. And over the years, the main street they're on, the neighborhood in general, has become more and more gentrified. So the questions the workers are asking themselves are, what change are we making? Do we locate elsewhere? How can we bring in the neighborhood if that's the right thing to do? And are these the right questions? And what do we think they should do towards liberation culture? So I don't know if I got everything. I'm going to hopefully folks can jump in if I didn't, but we talked about, wouldn't moving to a new neighborhood simply start the gentrification cycle over again, and what is that, but also about things they could do would be to work around maybe helping to create land trusts or housing cooperatives to reduce the value or the ability for investment capital to come in and gentrify the neighborhood. Also, working with local elected representatives to learn about ongoing public policy that's intended to either mitigate negative effects of gentrification and think about how the co-op can support or even oppose policies depending on what they are. Engaging in mutual aid with the community, allowing access to restrooms, for instance, but also just being intentionality over being where they're at versus also what the neighborhood is asking for and how the co-op can join in on that. So really working and asking and consciously bringing in the neighborhood to work with the co-op to find common goals and grounds. And then investing in the neighborhood through longtime community institutions like churches or other neighborhood organizations that are serving the predominantly Black neighborhood as opposed to the gentrified community. And then also thinking about how to bring in workers from the neighborhood into the co-op, even though it might be a predominantly white space, and how to make those changes to make it more welcoming for Black residents of the community to come and actually work and join the co-op. And I think there was something Marco said early on that I didn't catch, so maybe Marco might want to add as well with the Portland experience.
Okay, anyone else, does anyone else want to add on to what John shared, or? And, like, this is very, like, all of these are very real. And does anyone else have any thoughts on this topic? How do we, like, not contribute to either how do, like, if we see this in our own neighborhoods happening, or as a co-op, either, however your perspective would be, like, are there any thoughts on what you would do or recommend? Okay, and we'll have more conversation later. We'll have broader discussion later too. So we can move to group number 4 now.
Okay, so the group number 4, we are talking about democracy and process. And the scenario is the co-op has greatly in need of money for years. An outside wealthy person has offered to donate, but with the expectation that they will have guidance and input that crosses boundary of worker owner decisions. What does your co-op do? That was the scenario. And we all agree that if this is crossing the boundaries, obviously this individual either don't understand the mission and value of the co-op, and so we probably need to educate these person. And what really came down to was the importance of that education and really people understanding the value and the mission, because even though when we're working for a solidarity economy, but when we don't have the capital and the resources, we might be swayed. And especially like myself, or those folks who are new to this work, who are new to the the world of cooperative and solidarity economies, it turns into a great opportunity to education, including someone like this, like who wants to invest and take control. Maybe this person simply didn't know. So perhaps that could be an opportunity to turn this person into cooperative member or lead the cooperative into some other leads for partnership and collaboration moving forward. So we can turn this opportunity into a great educational moment and really talk about the value and mission and be clear and grounded in that. Yes, and if anybody from the group wants to add to that, please do.
I'm obviously not in the group, but what if this person is like, I have no interest in any of that. Are you going to let me do this or not?
Right, yeah. That happens.
I know.
And one thing that Rebecca shared with me, and which I had no idea, is that some states obviously allow that to happen, including some seats at the board. So like depending on the state, that might be something that we need to really be careful in understanding what the law is.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to turn down money too. It's hard. It's very hard. But yeah, or education. Hopefully that works too. But no, I appreciate that. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share from that group, from group 4? Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Yuko. And number 5, group 5.
Hello. In group number 5, it was Melissa, Gray, Drew, and Jessica. Please feel free to add anything if I didn't capture it. But our discussion was around education and leadership development. And we talked about leadership should be an open process. People should know when to step up and when to step back. There was discussion about better education on what leadership is and what role should be played around that. Educating ourselves as individual and how we should go about in the leadership process. There was always also discussion around doing understudies in a case where one worker is the one who's doing everything and running everything and controlling everything, and then that person up and leaves, then the rest of the group is left scrambling because or that person get a promotion or they go to another organization or something around that. It's sort of a throw the other members off because you didn't really figure out how to fill in these blanks. There was also discussion around empowering other leaders as a result of the problem that could cause. And yeah, empowering other leaders and helping them grow their leadership. They said at some point, it should be understood that everyone is a leader and that we're not here just to follow what everybody else is saying, everybody should have a voice and they should be able to put out whatever available to them so all could gain. There's also discussion around. I think I'm hearing a feedback. Are you hearing me? Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think I got thrown off there. Yeah, there was discussion too around the process of power and authority, and that people should not just be leaders because of these things, power, authority, or favoritism, or anything else that sort of throws somebody else into the loop. There's a tendency to be like, okay, if Joan is doing everything, just let her do it, whoever want to do it, let them do it. No big deal. I don't have a problem with it. And then others don't get the chance and the opportunity to develop their skills and to see how good they will be at that or at other things. There should also be democratic practices where anyone should step up and play a role, and responsibility should be shared and intentional. And lastly, how do we help these individuals at the bottom that's ready to ascend upwards and not given the chance to do so, or just feel stuck and, pressed into the ground. And it should also be established that every leader has something to offer to the whole group. So that was a lot. And if there's anything I leave out, please, Melissa, Gary, Drew, or Jessica, please fill in. I hope I did you justice.
That's great. Thank you. That was very well stated. Yeah, anyone else from that group want to jump in?
I think she summed it up pretty well. It's about the collective leadership and the succession and transition, of the current leaders and inclusion of others, as far as in giving them the bravery and empowerment to be ready to ascend into leadership roles, but also assuming leadership roles in their time, place, and opportunity in the aligned mission and goals and purpose. So she did an excellent job in capping it together. Anyone else from the group want to support Gail as well?
You guys did a great job.
I thought it was a good summary. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So were any of these scenarios, does anyone else have any thoughts or feedback from these scenarios, maybe based on real life experience, and then how was it with the principals to help think through some of these topics? Because, were those useful in application to understanding how to grapple with these issues, or no? Or, any thoughts on that? Yes, Tanya.
Forgot I was on. Yeah, I was thinking in terms of leadership and democracy. It seems to me just human nature allows us to be corrupted by power. So even if no one else in the co-op cares that this one person is continually running because she's doing a good job, I think maybe the organization might need some inspiration or something to get them out of the rut and see possibilities that might excite them to want to join leadership, and have bigger visions of why they would want to try it, because without any malicious intent, the same person doing it constantly can run afoul of the principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. Oh, Jessica. Yeah.
Yeah, hi everybody. I would just add, this has been a great conversation. I would just add that these kinds of principles are really so important for democratic accountability, right? I think at least the groups I know of, that's where we fall the most short of living our solidarity principles, right? Either we're too liberal and we let people get away with stuff, or we just honestly don't know how to keep people accountable. And so I think, these help us to start to realize that these are the kinds of ways that we can focus on this, make sure we train ourselves on these things, and not be afraid to speak up about them, right? Because if they're listed here as the principles, what we want to uphold, then it reminds us that it's okay to speak up about it, that we shouldn't just ignore it or let it go, and that we need to really train ourselves on how to do this well. And I think that, to me, that's sort of the real challenge, right? It's not just good enough to say we want to do these things, whatever, but how do we really put our actions where our mouths are?
Yeah, to that point, Jessica, moving on to we've got another 20 minutes to talk about like this website and the tool itself. We really, really hope that co-ops will look at this website and document and come and devise workshops or clinics or, educational training opportunities for their own members to really dig in to what that means for them particularly. And we have some support from the People's Hubs to do facilitated clinics. If any of your co-ops or co-op organizations would like to really dig in deeper to this, and like y'all in this session, you haven't read the whole thing or really sat with it for a long time, but once you do, think about it and think about how, which of the principles you might be struggling with, or even, which principles do you have great practices that you could share with others, and let us know. So I see a couple hands up. Emma?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I also think these are great, and just echo everything Jessica said. And I think it's hard because I know there are a lot of co-ops and organizations that are very kind of publicly like advertising themselves as being in line with these kinds of principles, but not in practice. And I think it always brings up that question, like, what do you do when they're out of line, or what do you do when you do see people throwing people away and letting harm slide, as opposed to not doing those things. And I think it's like really common, and I think it's something that we should talk about openly because it's just very prevalent in our spaces.
Yeah, I feel like this to me, like I really appreciate that, because I feel like this to me is like hopefully like another tool in the toolkit to be able to bring to your co-op and say, maybe they all agree, like approve it, that your co-op wants to live by these. And then if you see like say like discrimination or these issues come up, then you can point to this. It could help you give like words to why it matters. Like, we've agreed to this as a co-op, and this is very clearly against XYZ. We need to strive to be better. That's easier said than done, of course, but hopefully it's like another tool in the toolkit. And we have a few questions up here. So are there any like clarifying questions or thoughts, reflections on the process and the content? And would you want your worker co-op to engage with this, the Solidarity Economy Principles, or the US Federation membership? Yeah, Mel.
I actually just wanted to comment on the first discussion we were having. I personally don't have any real life experience working in a cooperative, but I do have experience working in a nonprofit, and I have left the nonprofit field because of the tension and just a lot of corruption. But that's not to say every nonprofit, but certainly the ones that I have been a part of. And but one of the things that I pulled from that experience is the lack of compassion. And so one book that I have been really diving into, my apologies, one of the books that I have been diving into is called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And I really love her approach to speaking on the organizational culture, regardless of what entity you may be a part of. But you know, the main tenet for that is compassion, and I feel that that the more compassionate we are in terms of one another, the more able we are to understand everyone's experience, and not you know, coming in with assumptions, because sometimes we can be triggered and triggering other past experiences, and therefore we create these assumptions that can certainly harm the overall group dynamic and such. And so I think that part of that, the accountability, is also is part of having that compassion. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just wanted to share that.
Totally. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Yeah, no, I agree personally. And yeah, Michael, do you want to go next?
Sure. Just to sort of a corollary observation and then question about the process. I mean, we need to understand that as much as we promote cooperatives and talk about cooperation, we've all been raised in a very capitalist, competitive, individualist society. And to expect that people will be able to sort of transform themselves because they're starting a business and make a commitment. So I think Jessica's point of always sort of having to be diligent about that, the need for training, the need for understanding, but also being understanding sort of the limitations. I mean, I see this very much more in conversions where, you know, business owners may want to sell to them, but they're so used to running the business and the workers are so used to having the business run in a certain way that it's very easy to continue to do what you're most familiar with and you're most comfortable with, rather than this sort of new sense. So I think that's just something to be aware of. So there's a need for training, there's a need, but I think there also means that individual co-ops, in order to really succeed at this, need a context and an environment which promotes and connects them, which is part of what the solidarity economy is wanting to do. And I think that's the other observation I want to make about the session today. There was, in the discussion groups of the 6 principles, there was a lot related to how individual co-ops work and can implement these principles. But the opening paragraph said that cooperation is really just trying to mollify the impact of the current system. And the solidarity economy has a vision of how to get beyond that system. And I just didn't find a lot of discussion about that aspect of the solidarity economy in today's presentation, and would like to learn more about that, of how one sees the dynamic. Because I mean, it's really a question of power concedes nothing without demand. And the question is, how do you sort of really transform, not just in a vision, but in a practical way, the power dynamics of the current situation through these economic tools we're trying to develop.
Thank you. Yeah. Rebecca, do you want to share? Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. And I was in that P6 session too, and that really is one of the ways we do it. So again, this presentation wasn't supposed to be a full presentation of all the principles and all the practices and all the thought behind it. Was really just an intro to give individuals participating in a sense of, how you could use it yourself. But I agree that the whole point of doing all of this is to transform society and to transform ourselves and our relationships with others in our communities as we're doing that. So these are, I really encourage you to peruse the website. And I will put that website again as a link in the chat. And in that website, there's a little button that says participate, and that leads to a form. So if you have any feedback or any comments, any questions, any new principles you think might fit, please give us that feedback in this form and take it into your space. Like, I really appreciate that you're thinking about these things in terms of conversions, which I agree is probably one of the hardest, most challenging ways to deal with these, since you're working with a business that has long established ways of doing things in the capitalist economy as a capitalist business. And I would love to chat with you or hear more from you about how you think, what you think those people might need in terms of support to just basically understand the principles, because obviously not everyone is going to be on board with we need to transform society just because they're a part of a business that converts to a co-op. So, and some co-ops just might not be interested. It's just a way to organize a business, right? And that in the last 5 years or so has been the way that a lot of groups have presented worker co-ops in our country, is just like, hey, here's a cool new way to organize a business, and maybe it can combat income inequality, but there's not a lot of depth to that. And I think all of us who are here wanting to talk about it, we need to create those tools. We need to create those relationships. We need to create those networks of folks who are like, but yeah, no, it's something more. We know it can be something more, and we need to build it, and not rely on others talking for us. And one of the principles has to do with basically sharing the mic and not letting just the sort of usual suspects speak for the movement again. So again, just thanks so much for that feedback and everyone's feedback, and let's hear some more.
If you have like good examples of this in action in your own lives or workplace or communities, that would be great to hear too. I see if you being dropped into chat, like Cooperation Jackson. And we just had a big conversation on associations in another workshop. And if you have examples in your own life or where this might be helpful, like, or, to talk with the group.
I see a question from Jessica Rosenberg asking about where this came from. I don't know that there have been other attempts to synthesize SE principles in our country for our context, but this definitely came out of our context and out of the frustration, some of which I was just alluding to in my last comments about and some of the things that Emma raised at the beginning. Organizations saying they're representing worker co-ops and that they're this social justice thing, but the way they operate internally and the practices are not really in accordance with cooperative values and solidarity economy values. So there's been, I think, folks who have been in this field for a while have really felt that tension and had a lot of like personal pain. I can say I have really had a lot of pain around seeing what I know could have been, anyway, understanding the principles, really having dedicated my life to cooperative and solidarity principles, and seeing how if organizations aren't adhering to them, how it can actually be harmful to a movement. And really needing, so this came from a bunch of different people, and including Alandria, spent their time traveling around the country and around the world, really helping folks be consistent with those principles and build a solidarity economy and their co-ops in a sustainable way that is linked through these principles, instead of just trying to chase the next money train, for example. So that's kind of where this is coming from, is this deep desire to hold all of ourselves accountable, in love and in with a vision of what we know we all can achieve collectively, and figure out how to get on that track. So I hope that answers your question, Jessica R.
Chris, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah. But I think earlier there's a question of like how have we seen like the solidarity happening. I think one way that that might make sense to answer the question is what Chai Meals has done in Chicago, Illinois. So Chai Meals is I'm going to use this term. I don't think they use this term, but like a federation of 3 other worker cooperatives, and one of them was the new one that launched during the pandemic. Like they launched as planned, and I don't know if they had this in mind when they're coming together, but it came together this way to where they started providing free meals to anybody who needed it. My understanding was when they were going to develop, they were just going to be providing food like bulk sales to like big vendors or something. That's not what happened, and so they're providing free food to anyone who needed it. And I know that a few months ago they were actively looking in the poor neighborhoods of Chicago, or rather the more intensely extracted neighborhoods of Chicago, for people who needed free food for food distro to their communities. Like if they're going to be outside giving out free food to the community. I thought that was meaningful because that I didn't see if that's what they're going to be doing in the first place. It seemed like they're trying to be responsive to people who usually don't have the money for a business or to help a business thrive. That's I'll stop right there.
And I so appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, I feel like probably for a lot of us here, like in the worker co-op movement, like, I'm not like I appreciate co-ops for anybody, but the reason I'm into worker co-ops myself is because it's a tool towards creating a more socially just community and like supporting each other as a community. And so to me, these principles really fit into that and help us expand upon that or articulate that and then be able to point to that and say, this is who we are, is like part of this broader community. And our worker ownership clearly matters too, but it's a part of this broader picture. So thank you. We have a few more minutes left, and does anyone else want to share an example or anything, or have any other thoughts before we sign off?
I see Michael's hand up again. Michael, is that a vestige hand, or would you like to share?
That's a vestige hand.
Okay. Well, given what we've said and how we've talked about where it comes from, we want, oh, Gail, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that I myself is a part of co-op. My co-op is Hopewell Care Childcare Cooperative. There have been a lot of positive. There have been some challenges. Sometimes there are issues that comes up around language and language justice and communication. And as you work with different individuals who have different perception of who you are or what others are, which most of the time is wrong. Sometimes there are people who come into the space and they project things on others, and that becomes a lived situation and not, how should I say? Well, to sum it up, all co-op will know where their weaknesses are once they're formed. So it's good to have principles, it's good to have value, it's good to say, this is how it should operate. But then when you get together, it's like a family, right? You love your mom, you love your dad, but at some point you're like, listen, I can deal with this. Or, things come up, even if you love people. So in the co-op, the same thing happens. And what comes up for you have to be dealt with, because sometimes good people quit. Sometimes people prevent others from thriving. it depends on what is prevalent and what is not working for the whole co-op as a whole. So once you're in the situation and you see what the issue is, I think everyone should step up and address it and try to move forward with whatever resources are available to improve every situation individually.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Gail. And John McNamara just wrote, worker cooperation is a lifelong journey of personal and community development. It doesn't end with signing the Articles of Incorporation and electing the board. This movement must be about human development. And hopefully this is one little tool that can help us get there. And so if your co-op is involved in an association, be it regional, national, international, share this tool with members. Get to know your coworkers in a way, like use this as a tool for family discussion, Gail. If that co-op is your family, like pick something and have a family discussion about it, and then talk about how you might, bring that discussion to your larger family in your larger organization or association. And that's ultimately, we're not gonna, John also had a comment about, about outrage, like virtuous outrage or something, or hate culture. Like, we can't be just calling people out all the time. We really, this work, this website came out of us really knowing, like, we can't just be with our rage and be mad. We really have to articulate a vision, a positive vision, and tap into all of the amazing resources that we collectively have developed over the years, and bring something forward publicly to have us all aspire to, So that's what this is. And share the slide deck out, Esther, and please use that form to contact us, or Esther and I, you can contact us individually. We'll share our emails with you if you want to engage. This was awesome. Thank you all for being here and participating.
Thank you, everybody.